Time to talk about the 12-2-2 St. Louis Blues, who are happily sitting in the wild card 2 spot.
Hey, this is Brayden Chen.
Subscribe to Locked On Blues.
You're Locked On Blues, your daily podcast on the St. Louis Blues. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome back to Locked On Blues, your home with the 12-2-2 St. Louis Blues. I am your host, Haley Taylor Simon, talking to you all things about our wildcard 2 St. Louis Blues. On today's episode of Locked On Blues, I'm going to talk to you about the 4-point weekend the Blues have had, also Dvorsky, and then finally, as I mentioned numerous times, because I think the national media kind of forgets, the Blues are sitting in the wild card 2 spot in the West, and they actually do have a chance to claim that wild card 1 spot. I'm going to get into today's episode with saying this. I understand that the Blues maybe had an easier schedule than some other teams in the NHL, right? But that doesn't change the fact that this team is still showing absolute dominance. 6 wins in a row for your St. Louis Blues after this weekend. And I understand, they only beat the Predators. They only beat the Blackhawks. I'm so sick of those excuses. I, for one, believe this. Any given team can beat any team, right? It doesn't matter if you're one of the worst teams in the NHL. It doesn't matter if you're the best team in the NHL. Any team can beat a given team. You have back-to-back games, mind you. And why am I so annoyed about this? This is the 10th time this season the St. Louis Blues had back-to-back games, more so than any other team in the NHL. And you're going to come and tell me that this team isn't impressive. You're going to tell me that since the break, the Blues have gone 12-2-2. Please, let me know if any other team has come close to that, because they haven't, because the Blues are the most dominant, the most aggressive, the most hungry team in the NHL right now. They lost their best defenseman in Colton Parayko. And you know what? Say what you want to say about Justin Folk, because I know that game against Vancouver, it was a really bad game for Justin. However, he did step up this weekend. And in yesterday's game against the Nashville Predators, he did score a goal. So I was happy for that. I was like, okay, Justin, you're kind of redeeming yourself to me. But I cannot believe after this weekend, after the dominance that the Blues have shown, people still feel the need to disrespect this team, okay? As I said, the 12-2-2, they have scored 63 goals, okay? And they've only allowed 37. That is huge. And again, I'm not here defending the Blues on every decision they make. If you go back and you watch my other episodes, I straight out said this is not a playoff team, because before the break, newsflash, they were not playing as a playoff team. They were playing as one of the worst teams in the NHL. But we've seen this trend before with the Blues, where they don't play necessarily good hockey, but yet they find this sense of motivation, and all of a sudden they're explosive. And that's what we've seen from the Blues since the break. A great example is Zach Bolduc. Instead of going on vacation, instead of enjoying his time off, he decided to go down to Springfield, play with the Thunderbirds to get more reps. And you know what? He has been absolutely fantastic. Instead of it being Zach Bolduc, his name should be Zach Golduc, because that is what he is doing on the ice. And I know I'm ranting a little bit, but do you blame me? Do you blame me for ranting? Because all I'm hearing about is, the Toronto Maple Leafs. Like, I'm sorry that, you're still hung up on the original 6 teams in the NHL, and you cannot for 1 second give respect to the St. Louis Blues. The St. Louis Blues have a few days off as they prepare to battle tomorrow night against the Canadiens. But I have beef to actually pick with some people that do our national NHL show here on Locked On Podcast Network. The Locked On Podcast Network, there's so many different shows, right? However, I am more focused on the Locked On NHL show. Now, I have to tell you, I'll listen. Is it a lot of Blues talk? Not all the time, but I heard the Blues got brought up by a couple guys that I consider my friends outside of the podcast. And I'm going to read you a quote. The Blues are somehow alive. You look at the Blues roster, it's not impressive in the slightest. That was said by Nick. Nick does the national show. He also does Locked on Oilers. Nick does a great job. This is how I get my Oilers information when I just want to sit and chuckle at the fact that they allowed some very talented players to just be taken like that. But I was listening and I wrote down that quote, and that really annoyed me. Now, Hunter, who also does the show with Nick, he also does Locked on Penguins. He was on a couple weeks ago. He was giving, Coach Montgomery praise, so thank you. But seeing that, this roster is not that impressive. Are you kidding me? After everything that I just laid out here about the fact that Zach Bolduc is leading the rookies in goal scoring, when you have Robert Thomas I don't understand the Robert Thomas hate. Oh, at best, he's a 2C. No, he is a 1C. If he was not injured, mind you, he would have been in the Four Nations faceoff for Team Canada. I don't understand this hate towards Robert Thomas. And it's because he's on a team like the Blues that maybe don't get as much national media attention. But at the end of the day, Robert Thomas, and I am a Robert Thomas offender, and I do not care because he has 60 points on the season so far with 18 goals and 42 assists in only 60 games. Because yes, let me remind you, Robert Thomas was injured. And I know what you're saying. Oh, but Hale, sometimes he's a little bit quiet on the ice. No, he is a good playmaker. And I do not care what you have to say. Robert Thomas is one of the staple players to the St. Louis Blues. And I will always defend Robert Thomas. Always will defend him. He is plus 11 so far this season. Plus 11. Oh, but, he's not that good. 42 assists. Last season, Robert Thomas, he played all 82 games, 26 goals, 60 assists, and he was plus 9. But hey, because he was injured and he was out for a good amount of time, now all of a sudden, we're going to ignore Robert Thomas. I am so incredibly disgusted by how much disrespect Robert Thomas gets. And then you have Colton Parayko, who is on, by the way, the Four Nations face-off Team Canada, as long as Jordan Binnington. He's not that great of a defender. No, they didn't say that directly. Thinking. And then how about Jordan Kyrou? And Jordan Kyrou is somebody that I feel like gets an extreme amount of hate. Amount of hate that I cannot fully even process. Because team. But this season, 30 goals, 31 assists, 61 bleeping points. Oh, and by the way, he's plus 17. So yeah, am I fired up? Yes, because I feel like there is this insane amount of disrespect, and I'm over it. Listen, I respect the guys' opinions. I do. I respect the national media. I do. But I am over the slander when it comes to the St. Louis Blues, because this is a much better team than anybody is giving them credit for, and I am over it. But something happened this weekend that made me happy. This should be a happy episode too. Oh my gosh, but I'm just so over the disrespect. But something did happen this weekend, and one of my favorite players on the Springfield Thunderbirds made his debut. And I cannot wait to talk about it. But first, I want to tell you about my friends over Pistachios. And nutrition, crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein 1 ounce serving, that's 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to help keep you feeling fuller longer. Personally, I love the no-shell variety. It's the perfect grab-and-go snack for busy days. Whether I'm stuck at my desk, on a road trip, or I just need a quick protein boost, they're always my go-to. And if you love cracking open every shell for that satisfying crunch, the Intel options are a classic favorite. Get snackin' and get crackin' with the snack that packs a protein punch. Visit Wonderful Pistachios. Learn more. So I'm watching the game. It's the Blues and the Blackhawks. And I'm going on Twitter and I see it. Dvorsky will most likely And I am ecstatic. For months on this podcast. Towards the end of March, beginning of April, I would love to see Dvorsky get that call up, allow him to play a couple of games, and just, see how he does. And that is what happened, okay? And I could not be more impressed with the St. Louis Blues' organization for allowing the 2023 first round pick to make his debut. And I think this was the perfect time to do so. I think that this is a player that obviously has been working hard. And I know people have said he's not been playing that great with Springfield. He's been fine, okay? Maybe he's not playing the way that you want him to play, but I feel like he's been playing fine. And here's the thing. This was something that I was not expecting. It was something that I was not expecting to happen at the time it did happen. And for me, I think that just watching him on the ice, he did a great job on the third line. And he said, and this is, by the way, quote, it was a little bit of a shock to get caught up. I'm not going to lie. I didn't really expect it, but obviously an awesome feeling. I'm happy to be here. And he was also given Kelly Chase's pads as player of the game. And he has been, I feel like, one of the most anticipated prospects probably since Robert Thomas, maybe even Jordan Kyrou. And Dvorsky also said how amazing the crowd was, and all the guys in the room were great. Unbelievable experience, and I'll never forget it. And the crowd was amazing. I loved every second of it. I feel like he did a really good job in the game, and he made some really good plays as well. And he made the power play, that the one that led into that goal. I believe it was, which goal was it? Because I just said it. It was Texier's goal. Yeah. So they gave them, by the way, the assist to Robert Thomas and Zach Bolduc because Bolduc ended up touching it, even though at the game, I had to look back because at the game, they did announce that it was Dvorsky with the secondary assist. Anywho, it went to Zachary Bolduc, which is fine. But here's the thing, okay? That allowed the team to lead 2-0. And it was Dvorsky that really sent this whole sequence in, and it was a smart play. It was a play that showed that he has this kind of calm and poise, and he's able to read the rink quite well. So I really enjoyed watching him. I really feel like he was robbed of the first NHL point I was, but at the end of the day, it happens, and he did contribute a lot to the game. And I feel like right now, this is a player that maybe will get sent down, okay? And that's, you know what? It's fine, but it takes time to adjust. I mean, Dvorsky said himself, it's obviously a lot different in the AHL. I had to adjust a little bit. The pace is faster. The players, the opponents are better. It's just a little different. But the good thing about Dvorsky, though, is that I do feel like he just fit in. And yeah, like Dvorsky's dad even plans on staying. They had him on the broadcast yesterday. Jamie Rivers was talking about this, but overall, I was really impressed with him. And obviously, Dvorsky had a lot of good things to say. Coach Montgomery said, I liked him. He did really good, made plays, moved pucks on the first touch, which is a sign. That play that he made on the power play that led to the goal, it's high end, and it's a good start to his career. He knew what he was going to do with the puck before he got it, and that's usually a really good hockey sense. Something in my notes, I write notes after every game, and my word to describe Dvorsky was poise, because that's what I saw out of him. And he fit in well. So again, who knows if he will stay? Probably not. However, there's always that possibility. But I mean, getting this experience in the NHL and knowing what you need to work on ahead of next season is really beneficial for his career. Again, that is a huge milestone, and I'm really happy that his father was able to come up and celebrate that with him. I'm going to talk to you about some standing situations, but first, Monarch Money. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. And that's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So you just stop managing your money and start building with wealth. When I started using Monarch, I realized just how much I was spending on food delivery. Now I budget smarter and save more. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money and use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first order. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNHL for half off your first year. So, hello again, haters. I know I talked about Dvorsky, something positive, and you're still probably wondering, are the St. Louis Blues even that good enough to get into the playoffs? Are they good enough to stay in the wild card 2 spot? Or are they good enough to get into that wild card 1 spot? Well, newsflash for you. The answer is yes. Because right now, the St. Louis Blues, who everybody counted out, including myself for a bit of time, and I'm going to admit that because I literally said it, have 81 points. The Minnesota Wild with 85 points. And I think the Blues can catch up to the Wild. Both teams are in a 3-game win streak. However, with the Minnesota Wild, this is one thing that I will say about them is that I feel like they are beatable. I know they're missing some key players right now, but so are the Blues. They're missing their best defenseman in Colton Parayko. So tonight, we have the Wild and the Dallas Stars. And I have to tell you, I am rooting for Dallas. I mean, why wouldn't I? Dallas right now has 92 points. I don't think the Blues can catch up to them. So please win Dallas. Like the one time I will say that because I know how we all feel about the Dallas Stars here in St. Louis. However, we do not want the Wild to gain any points. Sitting below the Blues with 77 points, we have the Calgary Flames. Now, the one thing about the Flames is that they do have 3 games in hand over the St. Louis Blues. I know, horrible NHL schedule. I get that, but Edmonton. I know. I root for either, and I don't want to root for crack. However, this is the situation that we, as Blues fans, are in. We also have the 76 points. Oh, the Vancouver Canucks, the team that we beat in overtime, even though it should not have gone to overtime. And tonight they have the New Jersey Devils. Again, hoping the Devils can win. Then they have the Islanders and the Blue Jackets. I feel like the Blue Jackets could win. But let me say this. The national show that I called out with Nick and Hunter, they were both rooting for the Canucks, by the way. That is why this beef began. Because Hunter said, I want to see prime Quinn Hughes in the playoffs. Well, get prime Robert Thomas, prime Kyle, prime Zach Bolduc, prime Jordan Binnington. Well, kind of. And then defense. Again, we can say Philip. But okay, let's not talk about defense. They've been fine. Like, it's not prime, but like still they've been carrying this team. So yeah, the Blues I feel like are in a good spot. But I do want to talk about St. Louis's next 3 games as well, because obviously this is going to be a huge fight for the Blues to maintain this wild card 2 spot and hopefully, big hopefully, advance the wild card 1 spot. So the Blues' next 3 games, I am saying this like I'm announcing a WWE match. Tomorrow, as I said, they're hosting the Canadiens. Then on Thursday, they go back to Nashville to take on the Predators. And then on Saturday, they're in Colorado taking on the Avalanche. Stay hating, and that won't change the fact that the St. Louis Blues are still your wild card 2 team as of today. Subscribe to Locked On Blues here on YouTube. Check us out on Twitter at Locked On Blues. And I will talk to you all in tomorrow's episode for a game day preview. Let's go Blues.